Good day everyone! We are Group 5 and we will tackling about problem solving. First, let us define what problem solving is.
What is problem solving? Problem solving is classified as subjective due to the procedures used to score item responses. Instructor can assign full or partial credit to either correct or incorrect solution depending on the quality kind of work procedure presented. In a simple definition of problem solving, the act of defining the problem, diagnosing the problem root cause, identifying and implementing a solution, and sustaining result. Example of problem solving test item follow. It was calculated was 75 men could complete a strip on a new highway in 70 days. When work was scheduled to commence, it was found necessary to send 25 men on another road project. How many days will it take to complete the strip?
So let's now proceed to suggestion for writing problem-solving test items. So first, provide directions which clearly inform the students of the type of response called for. Meaning, when we write a test question, make sure that the instructions are clear so that the students how exactly what they are being asked to do. There are two example to better understand undesirable question and desirable question. So let's first have the undesirable question. An American tourist in Paris finds that he weighs 70 kilograms. When he left the United States, he weighed 144 pounds. What was his net change in weight? So this is unclear question because first, it doesn't tell the students whether to answer in pounds or kilograms. Second, the students might be confused and give answer in either unit. And lastly is this makes it hard to grade fairly and can affect students' performance. On the other hand, desirable question naman is an American tourist in Paris finds that he weighs 70 kilograms. When he left the United States, he weighed 144 pounds. What was his net weight change in pounds? Um, so this is clearly question because first, it clearly tells the students to give the answer in pounds. Second, there's no confusion about what unit to use. And lastly, it helps students focus on solving the problem instead of guessing what the teacher wants. So remember that always give clear and specific directions in our test questions so that students understand exactly how to answer. Avoid being vague or leaving out important details.
Second is separate items part and indicator point values. So what does separate items part and indicator point values mean? In assessment or test, especially in math or science problems, a question can be broken into multiple smaller parts. Each part may test a different skill or concept, and each part is assigned in a certain number of points based on how difficult or important it is. This may take grading fairer and more specific. For example, in problem statement, a man drives to a convention at 50 mm per hour. He returns by plane at 300 mm per hour. The total travel time is 1 and 3/4 hours or 1.75 hours. Desirable meaning is expected or goal answers. So the question asked first is, how long did it take him to fly back? Second, how far from his home was the convention? These are the two parts or separate items. Too simple of breaking this into parts with point values. You should set up and solve for the time to fly back, and second, you use time to find a distance for home of convention. To solve the problem, we begin by letting t represent the time in hours it took the man to drive to the convention. Since the total round trip time was 1.75 hours, the time he spent flying back will be 1.75 minus t hours. Because the distance going to and returning from the convention are the same, we can set up an equation using the formula distance equals rate times time. The distance he drove is 50t and the distance he flew is 300 times 1.75 minus t. Setting this equal gives the equation 50t equal 300 times 1.75 minus t. Solving this equation, we distribute and simplify 50t equals 525 minus 300t. Then combine like terms to get 350t equals 525, which leads to t equals 1.5. This means it took him 1.5 hours to drive to the convention. Subtracting this form, the total time we find it took him is 0.25 or 15 minutes to fly back. And finally, to find the distance, we multiply the driving time by the driving speed. 50 times 1.5 equals 75 miles. So the convention was 75 miles from his home. So the final answers or are desirable is that time to fly back is 0.25 hours is equal to 15 minutes. And the distance from home is 75 miles.
And now I will discuss the advantages in using problem solving items. The first one is minimize guessing by requiring the students to provide an original response rather than to select from several alternatives. For example, instead of asking what is 2 plus 2, ask if you have 2 apples and you get 2 more, how many apples do you have now? This encourages a deeper understanding of addition. By minimizes guessing, problem-solving questions require students to generate their own answers, reducing the chance of correct guesses compared to multiple choice questions. This provides a more accurate assessment of their understanding. The second is easier to construct than multiple choice or matching items. For example, a simple word problem is easier to create than a multiple choice question. Testing the same concept, especially if the concept is straightforward. It is easier to construct depending on the complexity. Constructing problem-solving questions can be simpler than creating multiple choice questions with many plausible distractors. The third is can most appropriately measure objectives which focus on the ability to apply skills or knowledge in the solutions of problems. For example, instead of asking what is the formula for the area of a rectangle, provide a problem. Like a rectangular garden is 5 meters long and 3 meters wide. What is its area. This assesses both knowledge of the formula and the ability to apply it. Measures application of skills and knowledge is a problem-solving items effectively assess a student's ability to apply their knowledge to solve real-world problems, which is a crucial skill. And the fourth is can measure a extensive amount of content or objective. For example, a problem could involve calculating the area of rectangular garden, determining the cost of fencing, and considering the best placement of the garden based on the sunlight. In this, integrates multiple subject areas into one problem, measures extensive content or objectives is problem-solving questions that can cover a wider range of concepts and skills within a single question than multiple choice questions.
I will be discuss the topic limitations in using problem-solving items. The first limitation is that these types of test items require an extensive amount of time for teachers to read and grade. Unlike the multiple choice questions that are easy to check with an answer key, problem solving items need to be read carefully. Teachers have to analyze each student's steps, not just the final answer. The second limitation is that they are subject to scorer bias, especially when partial credit is given. For example, if the student has an incorrect final answer but used the correct method or steps, the teachers might still give partial points. However, the amount of credit given may vary depending on the teacher's judgment, which makes it less objective. Because of this, it's important that teachers prepare clear scoring guidelines or rubrics to make grading fair and consistent. Also, before giving the problem to students, teachers should test solve it themselves to make sure the solution is correct and the problem makes sense.
Before we end our presentation, here are some important reminders to keep in mind when giving assessment to students to make sure they are effective, fair, and clear. So first, state in the directions whether or not the students must show the work procedures for full or partial credit. So when giving math problems or questions that involve steps, be clear in the directions. Let students know if they are required to show their solution or how they got their answers. So they help set expectations. So some students might only write the final answer, but we may want to see the process. Seeing it clearly in the directions helps avoid misunderstanding and ensures students can earn partial credit if they showed effort but made a mistake. Second, ask questions on which experts could agree that one solution and one or more work procedures are better than others. Make sure the questions you give are valid, meaning there's a correct answer and there are accepted ways to solve it. These should be the types of questions that other teachers or subject experts would agree on. This makes the test more reliable and helps avoid confusion. It also ensures students are being assessed fairly. And last is work through each problem before classroom administration to double check accuracy. So before you hand out the test or worksheet, try solving each problems yourself. This lets you see if the questions is clear, if the instructions make sense, and if the answer is correct. Sometimes, we only notice errors or confusing parts when we try to answer the questions ourselves. Doing this step helps prevent mistakes and make the assessment smoother for students. That's the end of our presentation on problem solving. We hope that the ideas we shared will help us all become better at solving problems both in school and real life. Thank you for listening.